for sharing. Vito.
Hello, everybody. Can you all listen to me well? Awesome,
Yes.
That's perfect. I'll just share my screen real quick. I haven't been using Zoom in a while, so if I make anything wrong, let's see, I think it's going to work.
Don't worry, I'm here to help.
Awesome. So, and please, if anything comes up, if anything happens, just let me know, just, but I think you can all see my screen, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So good afternoon, everybody, or good morning. It all depends on where you are watching us. I'd like to start this talk by thanking Braztesol and the TDSIG for this amazing opportunity. I know these are hard times, so I really wish everybody's safe and sound. And I think we have complicated things with the pandemic. Here in Brazil, we have lots of political issues going on, lots of rains that have been rough here in the state of São Paulo. That's where I live. But before we had this going over, different places as well. So it's been kind of chaotic year. I mean, but I think good things are coming. So let's hope everything gets nice. So today I'll be talking a little bit about literature and writing contests. So how these two skills can help, or two subjects in English language teaching can help us to promote social justice and student independence. I'll just put my stopwatch here because I may get carried away. Okay, it's working. That's awesome. So I'll just try to shed some light on some activities I have been doing with my students lately, and maybe something related to Paulo Freire's amazing work. So yeah, that's the thing. Just to introduce myself, talk about myself a little bit. I am an English teacher. I have been working with English language teaching for quite some time. And I'm currently an ELA teacher, which stands for English Language Arts teacher in a bilingual school. And as part of the ELA curriculum, we have lots of books to read, which I find to be amazing. My students are Brazilian, so their mother tongue is Portuguese, and we have lots of activities related to books. And teaching grammar, that always goes with, we try to get into context of these readings, and then we work grammar with that. But working with literature also showed me that we can go further, beyond grammar, word choice, spelling, and I think that's kind of what I'm going to try to show here. So I'll just move on with my slides. Let me just come back here. Okay, there we go. I think it's changing. So before I move on to the goals of this of today's talk, I'd just like to show this really quick. When I was back in 1999 and I was in middle school, I used it to study in a language institute. Actually, the teachers from the language institute, they would come to my school after school hours, and we would have English classes. And I remember one of my teachers, teacher Regina, she came to us one day talking about what was known back then as the millennium bug. Or as I found out, it's also referred to as year 2000 problem. In a very, very quick way, explaining that, and I believe everybody got to experience that as well. On December 31st, 1999, when we had the New Year's Eve, everybody was worried that computers wouldn't have, the date system, that instead of showing the year 2000, they would go back to the 1900. Because they were always using the last two digits as a reference for the dates. So we had this talk, and I remember this was very interesting for me because it was something very, very different back then. And we had this talk about, how can the millennium bug, I don't know, bother your life? And I remember my friends and I making jokes, oh, the machines are going to take over, computers are going to explode. But of course, back then I didn't have a cell phone. Internet access was, didn't exist basically for me. And then my teacher came and said, our language institute is coming with this writing contest, this writing competition. So I would like you all to write an essay, like write some paragraphs on how this would change your life, how this would impact your life. And I remember trying to figure out, okay, how is technology related to my daily life, to my routine? And I wrote an essay. I sent to this writing competition, and I was the winner. And the prize for that, and back then, 1999, I was very, very young. The prize was a play card. Like it was like a card for those arcade games, you know, those places you go and you spend your day playing arcade games that are different toys. They gave us a card. They gave me a card. Playland, I think that's the name. It's not sure if that exists yet. I mean, there are many play zone. I don't know, but I would have 3 hours to play as many arcade games as I could. You know, so that was pretty cool. And but throughout my life as a student and after I became a teacher as well, the same goes for university, I never had other opportunities for taking part in writing contests or writing competitions. And that really got me into writing. You know, teacher Regina, she really did something right, I think, among many other things. Of course, she was an amazing teacher. And the picture I have here is a sign in a French school showing that they were kind of not prepared for the millennium bug, because it's showing that the date shows January 3rd, 1900, not the 2000 year. So yeah, it could indeed affect our lives, but that was a strange, I mean, a different theme for a writing competition. And that's just my, I just wanted to start with this, you know, like my experience with writing competitions in English when I was a middle schooler, because I teach middle school. I teach grades 6, 7, 8, and 9. So I always try to coming up with some strategies or activities for them to develop their writing. Getting students to talk sometimes in class is kind of hard. Getting students to write and write longer pieces can be as challenging as that. So let's move on to our goals. I think I'm talking too much. So what I'm going to show here, I pretty much divided this talk in 2 moments, how we can use literature to foster social justice. And I have some examples of books that tackle prejudice, among other things. But how literature is related to students' daily life, how we can see ourselves in literature, how literature reflects what we are, or can reflect things that happen not only in the social field, but also in our very inner circle, you know, your family, your friends, your crush. You know, middle school, it's tough times. And also the second part, I would like to show a little bit of writing contests, writing competitions, and how these can develop students' skills and confidence in writing. And I have here the example of 3 free international writing contests. I do have the links, so I'll be sharing them in the chat after I show the slides. But I think those are interesting ways to get students to start writing, to show them they know more English than they think they do, and they know how to express themselves better than they sometimes judge themselves, you know. So I'd just like to introduce really quick, and this is the theory part, you know, of the talk, the heavy part, talk a little bit of how these things connect to critical pedagogy, which is Paulo Freire's approach to teaching, right? So pretty much we have this definition here: issues of social justice and democracy are not distinct from acts of teaching and learning. And Paulo Freire's method was first employed in the city of Angicos, which is a small city in Rio Grande do Norte, which is one of the Brazilian states in the Northeast, with 300 sugarcane cutters, so these workers who wanted to learn how to read and write. And it goes beyond just teaching them how to read and write. When Freire taught them how to read and write, and this is something interesting I will show a little bit after these slides, they were also allowed to vote. So people back then, people who couldn't read or write, they were not allowed to vote in Brazil. And you know, now that they know how to read and write, and this was done in a beautiful way, they can participate in democracy, and literally democracy in this case. And I just like to start with this tweet. It's in Portuguese, so I'll do a free translation of this. But Marcinho, who is the author of this tweet, is comparing, he was helping his cousin with math homework, and he said that somehow he employed Freire's approach to teaching when he was helping his cousin with this math homework. So this is what goes written here. So I am here sitting with my cousin, you know, teaching him, and then I ask him, how much is 175 divided by 25? And his little cousin goes, I don't know. And this is interesting. There is an online game called Fortnite. I'm sure you are all familiar with, and young kids, they simply love. They tried teaching me how to play Fortnite. I mean, it's not my cup of tea. I do like games, but I mean, Fortnite, not my cup of tea. And in Fortnite, you are in an arena and you have to defeat your opponents. And I mean, you have weapons, but you also can have a kind of armor. So like you have a shield that protects you. And then when Marcinho here from the tweet asked it, okay, so 175 divided by 25, the kid goes, I don't know, he changed the question. And then he goes, okay, so how many small portions of shield do you need to get 175 of shield in Fortnite? And right away he goes with 7, you know? And then he finishes his tweet saying, I love Paulo Freire. And this is pretty much like whenever we come up with Freire's name in mind, we think about that, like taking the routine, the daily life, the world of the student into account whenever you teach anything, whether it's English, Portuguese, in our case here in Brazil, mathematics, biology. If you start with the student's reality, things get much easier. And we have a nice example here. I'd like to move on now to this handsome fella here, Vygotsky, and we know him for the ZPD theory, right? The zone of proximal development. And I have a short definition here, and I'll show how this connects to Freire real quick. So this ZPD, the zone of proximal development, is the space between what a learner can do without assistance and what a learner can do with adult guidance or collaboration with more capable peers. And I have a better design here that shows that. So whenever students are learning something, they can do something on their own, so they have their autonomy for that. But if they have some guidance, if they have some support of any kind, or sometimes more advanced support, they can try to do harder things. They can maybe move into harder tasks, and I don't know, these ones can move into another harder task, and so on. So what we have here, we have 3 circles, sort of. The middle one, the green one, is what I can do alone. So what students can do by themselves, which is called a zone of active development. So it's a ZAD zone where the learner is right now. And this is something very interesting because the learner can do this by himself, him or herself, like, you know, with no problems. And usually when an activity is kind of boring for a student, maybe it's because that's due to the fact that he's doing something inside within the zone. So he knows that already. He knows that by heart. It's easy for him. Playing Fortnite, for instance, those kids, my students, they would be there. But what can they do if we have the support of an adult, of a teacher, of more, I don't know, advanced peers, when he moves into this ZPD, the zone of proximal development? So, and here we have a definition, what needs to be done to take the learner where he needs to be. So what are our goals for the lesson, for the subject he or she is learning? And I think this has a lot to do with Freire's work, you know? So you start with what the student can already do, his reality, what's common for him. And from that, you can move into more advanced or more different situations, not necessarily more advanced, but different scenarios of learning. So this is related definitely with what Freire can do, Freire says. And it's interesting to see that this is also connected to literature and writing. There is a quote from José Saramago. He's a Portuguese writer, and he says, you know, everybody's a writer. The only difference is that some people write and some people don't. And when we study linguistics, we get to see that. There are many different types of texts, and sometimes even orality is considered a text, depending on the theory you're following. So, I mean, why don't you put that on a paper? And when you put that on a paper, how can you make it longer or maybe more assertive? What are you talking about? Those questions will appear further ahead here too. And I'd just like to talk a little bit really quickly about critical linguistics. I am a PhD candidate in linguistics, and we study these, and my research is related to social linguistics. So I always try to see things by the perspective of society. And Professor Raja, he's a professor in the State University of Campinas, where I'm studying my PhD. And he has this critical linguistics approach to how science should be done in humanities, because language is seen as, it's a kind of a paradox, because everybody uses language every day. So when you have a person who studies language, and then this person comes and say, hey, we should see language this way, or we should teach language this way, some people would frown up and say, you know, but I use language every day, and I think you're wrong, because, you know, that's not how it works. And it gets kind of hard to see language and sometimes even language teaching as a science. And Professor Raja will say this here. The linguistic community is more and more aware that, like in the other fields of knowledge, doing science is also a social practice, and for this reason, full of ideological and political connotations. And this is something very powerful. And I have another tweet here. I wanted to bring more memes to my presentation. You know, I'm fond of memes. We should have a conference only with memes, but anyway. I'm kind of serious in this one. So, but take a look at this. This is I've taken this from the trilingual page on Facebook. So some people still use Facebook, and this is how it goes. I really would love to see the dialogue around indigenous languages shift from languages dying off to languages being killed. So see, this vision and this course analysis talks about this, how the meaning shifts according to the person who's talking or the subject that is being used. It's a perfect example of how we can see languages through a social view and as a science. We are not letting them die off. We are denied the resources to be able to revitalize them after they were intentionally injured through colonialism. So this is a very good example. This is a scientific view of language, and even like changing a short sentence, a simple sentence like languages dying off to languages being killed, that shows a critical position in regards language, and why not language teaching as well. So I think that's kind of the view here. And all these things connect around the social context. So society is there, the reality of the student, teaching, the practices we use, they are all related to the same thing. We have this in the core, in the center, which is the social. And this is something very interesting we have here. This man here, and I'll go with the subtitles here, okay? So it's one of Freire's former students, Paulo Alves de Souza, that's his name, so I'll call him Paulo. And he was one of the first students of Paulo Freire when he was having his literacy course. So, and this is something very interesting. He's saying here, between quotes down here, if the police caught us, we would be arrested back then. So he does not have any materials that Freire brought up with him or that were created, you know, during the course. And this quote up here is also from Paulo Freire. Reading the world always precedes reading the word. So, and this is a very quick movement into history. When Paulo Freire created his approach, his method for literacy to teach people how to read and write, he would use words from their everyday, their routine, as the first step to help them understand reading and writing. So if you take a look at what Paulo is writing on the board, so he has his name, you know, up there, and then he's writing some words. He's writing brick on the left side, and in the middle you have roof tile, so the things we put on the roof, so rain wouldn't enter our house. And it's interesting to see that Paulo was a worker. I'll use blue collar worker here because that's what most of them were. And the words that are being shown here are the words Freire used back then to help them learn how to read and write. So he would use words from their daily life. So we have brick, for instance, tijolo in Portuguese. And from this, he would break the syllables of tijolo, so ta, te, chi, to, tu, for example, using different vowels. And from that, he would teach them how to read and write, which is awesome, which is amazing. Years later, if you go online now, if you Google this, we have lots of people, and on social media as well, we have lots of people who really don't know what they're talking about, and they would criticize Freire's work. They would say, you know, this method of his is just to make people to pretend they know what they're reading or to pretend they know what they're writing. And what happens is that the government took over Freire's approach to teaching, and they really changed everything. They put everything out of place. So for instance, we have Mobral, which is a free translation would be the Brazilian movement of literacy. And instead of using words from the routine of the students, they would just create a list of words and force them into students, you know, so you're going to read how to read and write using these words, not the words of your daily life. And students saw purpose when they were learning how to read and write with their own words, like the words of their reality, of the world that was around them. And maybe that's why we have lots of people speaking nonsense regarding Freire's work nowadays. But anyway, this is like the heavy part of my talk. I'll move first now into literature and social issues. I have a quote from Neil Gaiman. And I'll just read this and then I'm going to go into what we're going to do. So fiction gives us empathy. It puts us inside the minds of other people, gives us the gifts of seeing the world through their eyes. Fiction is a lie that tells us true things over and over. Not necessarily a lie, but I mean, we get the point here, right? So this is Neil Gaiman's quote on literature. And why I link this to social issues, right? This is an interesting thing. I'll be showing 3 examples. I think the examples we talk more will be better to make us understand this. But let me move into the first one. These are 2 books I read with my year 6 students, so grade 6. They are around 10, 11 years old. And they are about Malala's life. So I have on one side, Malala's Magical Pencil, and on the other one, Malala, Activist for Girls' Education. Those are short story books. They're not very long, and we can find read alouds of them on YouTube. It's very, very easily. So they are there. And after reading these, we came up with the discussion, like, okay, so why should girls, I mean, why are girls not allowed to go to school? I mean, is there a good reason for that? Or why should only boys, get to choose their professions, get to follow their dreams? And we got lots of nice discussions. And it's always important to remember that in my class, even though we are a bilingual school, we have lots of students who came from different schools, like traditional ones, I can put that, and they don't speak English. So how can I make them engage these discussions, such a deep discussion in the same level of more advanced students? And this is the first activity I would like to share. I'll be sharing some activities I've done. Maybe 1 or 2 can be, I don't know, useful in different contexts. So this one, I took their names out, just left their first names. But there is a website, and I have here on my notes. I'm going to share this in the chat. It's tweetjam.com. And you can create fake tweets. And it's a very interesting website. You can, it's for free. You can just go there and create things. And this, when I did this activity with my students, we were on hybrid teaching. So they would go to school in certain days, but they would be at home in others. And so we would have online classes, but we also would have face-to-face classes at the same time. And then after we read, some of the students would point, I didn't know Malala, and this is something I've heard about, but I got to discover reading with them. I didn't know Malala had a blog, and because of her blog, she became famous, and that she was showing these things in her blog, like her reality in Pakistan. So I didn't know those things were happening. And then I said, okay, maybe we can try to do something. Maybe we can try to write a message to Malala, and it would be fun if we had like social media to do that. But they're very young, and most of them don't have. So we used this. We created tweets for Malala, talking a little bit about how they see themselves in her story, or how her story connected to them. And I have lots of fun stuff. And I have some funny parts of this activity as well, because in this website, tweetjam.com, you can choose everything for your tweet. So you can create your name, your username, for the tweet, for the print we're gonna have. You can also, and if you all take a look down here, you can choose how many likes, how many retweets you had. And some of them would put 5 million. I have one with 10 billion. Bianca's tweet has 10 billion retweets, apparently. And I said, oh, you're very famous, apparently. She said, yes, I am. So yeah, it's always very nice things to do. What are the benefits of this activity? Students who don't have lots of writing skills in English, they can do short sentences. It's easier to work with prompts. Maybe if you have something like, oh, dear Malala, I read your story and I liked, and you just put a blank space, for instance. But from that, we can work in different sentence structures. And I have some very interesting things. I won't read everything because it will be time consuming, and for the sake of time, I know my voice is not that beautiful, so I'll just move on. But I'm gonna read the first one. So, dear Malala, I just read part of your story, and I wanted you to know that I'm really thankful for what you have done to girls in Pakistan. I hope in a close future that the world gets more respectful, or full of respect. And this is interesting because here I am not using the error correction, so I'm not really correcting. This was the first drafts they sent to me. But then I would sit with them, when they would come to school, and we would go over word choice, spelling, grammar they could use. I have one from Anna that's down there. She wrote 2 tweets because she wrote a lot. She keeps telling me that she can't write, summaries because she prefers to write long pieces. But pretty much here, she uses punctuation very well. So she's talking a little bit about something that was new for her instead of like thanking her in this first moment. So this, I think this activity was very useful, was very interesting for them to get to see they can make their voice reach out, even though it's a fake tweet, not on social media, people can get some visibility. I'll move on to human rights, and I'm not sure if you all like animes, but like Japanese cartoons, my students are they're kind of fond of it, and this was with my older students, of course. But this is a picture from the anime Death Note. I don't know if you any of you have watched it. I'll just get some water, but I used, and of course Death Note's we need to be careful here because some parts of Death Note are not suitable for definitely not very suitable. But all of them in my in grade 8, pretty much all of them had watched the whole thing already. So they would come to me saying, "Hey, Mr. Have you ever watched Death Note? Because there is this situation, this thing happens." And I said, "Okay, so if all of them know, why not? Let's start with their reality." And Death Note pretty much is a story of a boy. He's a student, a high school student. He finds a notebook, and whenever he writes a person's name on the notebook, this person dies in real life. And then this boy he gets consumed by the idea that he can be, the purifier. He can clean the world of evil. And then he starts like watching news, like, we have those police news like Datena in Brazil. So he spends his days watching the news, looking for criminal names, and he starts writing their names on the notebook, in the notebook. So he starts killing everybody. And it comes to a part that the police starts to get suspicious, hey, lots of people are dying, like lots of criminals, maybe someone's behind that. And indeed, there is this guy, Light, that's his name, behind it. So I have a unit with my students related to justice. And we have this first debate, what is justice? And then I show them this part of the series and ask them, okay, so is this just like to prevent people to have like a fair trial? And some of them would say, no, if they are criminals, they have to pay for that. So they had it coming. Some would say, no, it's wrong. We have to take a look at what was going on. How was this person convicted? Was it a fair conviction or not? And after we do that, we move into reading Iqbal, which is this book here on the left. And Iqbal is the story of a boy who is a slave in a rug factory in Pakistan. And it's based on true events. And as we read this book, as we read Iqbal's story, we try to relate it to the United Nations children's rights. There are, if I'm not mistaken, 42 rights, 42 articles for how children should be protected. And as we read, each chapter asks them to write a short paragraph or like a short piece showing which articles are related to the story. So we have, for example, article number 1, and here we have on the right side, everyone under 18 has these rights. So I have, for instance, I'm gonna go with article number 8. You have the right to an identity, an official record of who you are. No one should take this away from you. And Iqbal, as he is a slave, he has no ID at all. He's like a ghost. He doesn't exist, because if he doesn't exist, like the police doesn't have to look for him. And students would try to make the comparisons. And I have a piece here, and you see some of the words are marked in red because I literally took a print screen from their work to show how I was trying to work with error correction. And I don't know, I would love to hear from you all maybe on hints to work on correction, written correction, text correction. And here is how it goes. So Iqbal is a slave that works at a carpet factory. In the article 31, they say that the kids should have a free time, but the kids that work in the factory don't have any time to play and relax. They are obliged to work until the master say, and then they can stop, which is the opposite of what article 19 says. And it goes on and on and on. Of course, Iqbal is an example of a book, but we can do that with different news articles. So if you go to the New York Times, The Guardian, unfortunately, we find lots of stories like that. So maybe how those stories, how are they related to those rights, those articles that the United Nations pointed out or not. And bigotry, this is the last one, okay, and then we move on. But we have some literature circle units, and in these units, students can choose a book of our library, and after they read it, we have some activities to do throughout the month. And there is this book, No One Must Know, by Eva Wiseman, which talks a little bit, it's a post-Second World War scenario in which the Jewish had to move to different communities, but in most communities, they were not accepted. And they had to write a letter. They had to write a speech in this one of why people should be accepted, how inclusion goes beyond, just, oh, you're here with us. No, we have to accept you, listen to your story. And I have this short excerpt I got from one of my students. Even years after the war, there are people who want to hurt us and think we didn't suffer. There are Jewish people that had to hide themselves because they didn't want to be judged by everyone and didn't want to be forbid to go to certain places. The same goes with another book that is The Breadwinner by Deborah Ellis. There are 5 books to the series, if I'm not mistaken. And I think Netflix had the cartoon animation of this book. Not sure, but it's like 1 hour, 20 minutes long. Very interesting. It's about a girl in Afghanistan. And I remember when we started working this, it was by the same time the Taliban got the power in Afghanistan. So I could use lots of, videos from the news, BBC, CNN to help them throughout the reading as well. And anyway, so there's this girl and Parvana, her father is arrested because he has books in his house. And this was I read this in grade 8 with my students. So like they had to, their activity was like, okay, so like they are the teachers and they are going to suggest this book for their fictional fake students, So they had to write like a letter talking a little bit about the book to their students. And I have a very interesting piece here. So dear students, in this unit, we are going to read a book called The Breadwinner. And I like, because I always start my unit saying, dear students, in this unit, we are going to do, so they just copied me. It talks about a little girl's life that is really complicated. She lives in Afghanistan. There, women can't get out of their houses alone. They need to be in the presence of a man. And it goes on and on and on. We can see also I put some yellow things here, like some words in yellow. I underlined others. So that was all part of the correction I was doing with my students as well. And I mean, and before I move into writing contest, just to wrap this part up, but we don't necessarily need to use books. Maybe if we use news articles, newspaper articles, that helps a lot as well. But maybe trying to connect them and showing them, okay, so this is their reality. How is your reality different? Or why is your reality different? What can be done, to solve that, to help them? I got some very nice in-class discussions, orally. So I think that's very, that goes beyond teaching grammar and word choice or spelling, But anyway, I'll move on to talk a little bit about writing contests. And I got these 2 excerpts. I'm keeping an eye on the clock here. From this book, Baltzar by Meg Wolitzer, which is a very interesting book. It's kind of related to Sylvia Plath's The Poet life, but no spoilers. So she goes, everyone, she continues, looking around, a lot of us, has something to say. But not everyone can bear to say it, and your job is to find a way. And this is like a teacher from the book saying to their students, you have to find a way to read, to put your feelings on the paper. And then I have another one. Even when I can't relate on a personal level, she makes me know what she feels, and that's really something. To find out what another human being feels, a person who isn't you, to get a look under the hood, so to speak, a deep look inside. That's what writing is supposed to do. So we have these 2 quotes. I think they relate beautifully to writing. And I'd like to go and show 3 writing competitions that are for free, and maybe that can get students excited to get writing, I have this one that is called Embracing Our Differences, which is a short sentence writing competition. So students can write a sentence up to 20 words related to diversity. And we have an example here in the middle. We are so much better united in kindness than divided in anger. So this is from Alicia Chalmers. and she's a student from Florida. And it's nice to work with students who don't have an advanced control of the English language. I think that's kind of an interesting way to show that. I don't have many examples for them from my students because they would write these on slips of paper and they would give to me, so I don't have anything virtual. But it's nice to check simple structures of grammar and word choice. That helps a lot. And this is an example of the final results. They also have this quotes, this sentence competition, but they also have at the same time an art competition, photographs, paintings. So you can send, anything related to diversity. And this is one of the winning photographs, one winning pictures here in the middle. And we have this quote from Roshni, who is a student from India. When life gives you tough cookies, crush them and bake a cake. So it's kind of cute. Another one, very interesting writing competition I got in with my students, and two of them were selected for the book back in 2021, so last year, is this one. The website's called Tales for Love. And they try to connect writing to protecting the environment. And this is the cover of the last book, that was published, the ebook that was published last year. And the students can create short stories related to nature or to the environment. The scenario, the setting must be related to nature. You can approach it in different ways, but they must be related to the environment somehow. And this part here, Yasmin, she was one of my students, and she was one of the selected students for this book. So the things in green here are my suggestions to her writing. So anything that is not green was Yasmin's first paragraph, the first draft. And she goes with Milena, Luna, and Luca. They were really into some Netflix series, those Netflix series where you have a group of friends. And I saw that a lot in the writing. So that's why we have the names here. So pretty much, Milena, Luna, and Luca went to the forest, and I'm skipping my comments, because they wanted to explore, and Luna didn't want to be alone, so she went with them. They entered in the forest and walked for 1 hour before stopping to rest, eat, and drink water. They were planning to stay there for less than 5 hours. And then I received like another short paragraph after. This was Yasmin's first draft, and she said, "Here it goes, mister. Let's do this. Let's send this to the competition." I said, "Okay, maybe we should work it a little bit more." And then I started putting some suggestions, and these are the things between brackets and in green that are in the middle of this text. So maybe talking a little bit more about your characters. Is it close to their houses? Try to describe that. Was there water? What is the problem they're gonna face? Are they lost? And then I would work with grammar correction using the yellow parts. Then Yasmin sent to me a second draft, and this one's kind of better. You see on the paragraphs, I'm not going to read everything, of course, but you see things are better. We have more room to work with punctuation, and Yasmin's punctuation was beautiful, like amazing. She was using semicolons in a great way. So, but then you can see like we have like 2 longer paragraphs. If you compare, let me go back like to this, some lines of text to full paragraphs. That's kind of interesting. And then after I sent it to her, she sent me back a third version. And the third version, and I'm showing here only the first parts, okay? But the first paragraphs. But like they move smoothly, like you see writing, getting by easily. And this was done throughout 3 weeks. So we had 3 weeks to work with that. Yasmin had 6 drafts until her final version. And when she was selected, this is kind of like what the final result looked like. So I'm just going to read the first paragraph. Okay, so Milena, Luna, and Luca met at school in 3rd grade, and after that they became just like one person. They lived in different houses, but in the same street. They didn't have many friends, what made them closer and inseparable. They had very different personalities, but they completed each other. And the story moves on and on and on. And then she came up with a title, because I told her, like, your story needs a title, So Lost, that was her title. Very fancy title. So and I'm gonna put this link here after, okay? But both this writing competition, the nature one, and the embracing our differences, the short sentences one, they happen yearly. So they will be happening pretty soon. I think it's in the 2nd semester, if I'm not mistaken. And I have a final one. which is about personal narratives. And this one is from the New York Times. It's from the Learning Network. The Learning Network is this part of the New York Times where people can, where teachers can find lots of resources for teaching writing, but also lots of writing competitions. And the best thing, they are open for students anywhere in the world. And we had this one that was about personal narratives. So students would have to write up to 600 words or fewer about something meaningful in their lives. And I remember back then we had the Olympic Games, right? And we had this amazing skater from Brazil who was pretty young, and everybody started writing like she was 12 years old when she got her medals in skateboard. And everybody was started saying, you know, like, what were you doing when you were 12 years old? You know, like, because this girl has Olympic medals. What were you guys doing? And my students would bring that up in class, and I would say, you know, like, it's not because she got Olympic medals, and I mean, she deserves that because she's amazing, but like that your lives are meaningless. You guys have lots of stuff you guys are going through. You guys are surviving a pandemic. I said, when I was like in middle school, I was not there. It didn't even cross my mind, you know, that I would be living a pandemic. So I think you guys have stories. You guys have, you know, we all have our fears, our desires, our dreams. So I don't know, put those things on the paper. And I had, but I didn't make this a mandatory activity. So I would ask students to keep on. We would keep going with the curriculum, the subject, the things we had to read and write. But I asked them if they wanted to participate, to write something aside and bring to me, and I would talk to them after school hours. And I had 6 students doing that. So that was kind of amazing, you know. And this is one first draft from one of my students writing. So this is from Dimitria. And you can see like the paragraph, I have lots of things underlined. I didn't put colors in this one, but I do have some comments back down there between brackets, you know, and like with my opinion on the paragraph and, you know, how the sentence is connected or not. This was a very interesting thing. And this is the final result. We sent our work. We were not selected. I mean, they were not selected, but they were so proud of, you know, like taking part in something big. There were more than 9,000 submissions around the world. And they were so happy, you know, like, oh, I was part of that, you know, I tried. And I mean, anyway, I just wanted to read like this last part of this. She was talking about when her father suffered a car accident. He was in a car accident, and she's talking about how she got the news of what happened. And it's very powerful. The last sentence, like when her father goes back home, and she goes, his arms around me made me feel like I was inside a comfortable sweater after spending hours standing at a cold breeze. And she writes very well. I mean, that's definitely, she's going far. But I just wanted to share this. I think this is a very good writing competition to work different themes in the classroom. And I know I have like 3 minutes, so I just move into my final remarks. I think getting to learn how to read and write should not be restricted to understanding a message. It's a political act, as we have seen, and it's in a way or another, it's how we interact with one's surroundings, you know, and how you can contribute to your surroundings, to your community, to your everyday life. In many countries, and this I won't dwell a lot here, but in many countries where English is not an official language, language learning sometimes comes as a commodity. And Freire shows us that, right? We have to use what we're learning to go beyond classifying the world. We use it to engage the world. So when we learn English, for example, sometimes people say, oh, I just want to learn English so I can go to Disneyland. But what if you learn English to, I don't know, maybe write a speech, you know, give a speech on something interesting out abroad, and I don't know, people get to listen to you. And I just gonna go through this quote from Wittgenstein. He says, the limits of my language are the limits of my universe. So how we search these places of speech and like through the analysis, discourse analysis lenses, you know, but how can I show the world that I have a message and make them listen, you know, and instead of people just saying, oh, look how beautiful his English is, he learned English in Brazil, you know, and they just turn around. No, they have to listen to what we have to say, you know, and I think English as a global language has the power to do so. And I have this beautiful quote from Pinterest: diversity is having a seat at the table, inclusion is having a voice, and belonging, so like people getting to listen to you, is having that voice be heard. So that's, I think, what summarizes these final remarks. These are my references. I'll be just copying the links and putting them in the chat. Okay, I see that I have lots of chat messages. I hope everything was okay in the middle of the talk. But thank you very much for, let me just stop sharing. Okay. Let me just get the links here. And then that's it. Thank you very much for being here, all of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vito. It was wonderful. Some fantastic ideas. I really love how you are able to find all these different competitions and how you work with different genres and adapting to, you know, making it possible for students with different language levels to be active, participate, and use language to express themselves, and how you bring literature into it and the different books. It was really, really interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Do we have any questions? Nope. Okay. So once again, thank you, Vito, for sharing your experience and your work with us. And I will pass on to our next, let me, I think Irene is moderating the next one, right? Well, you are. So Mr. Tyson Seaburn.
Thank you very much. Hey, thanks, Victor, by the way. Okay, so we'll get started in 12 minutes, I guess. Romina. Hello.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Tyson. Hi, Cecilia. Hi, people.
How are you?
Fine, fine.
Good.
I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Especially, you know, I'm gonna now break the news that you're one of our PCE speakers.
Oh, yes, that's so lovely. So lovely. I really want to, I mean, it's an honor to be here today with you, and it's going to be an honor to be in Ireland in May. Yes, I'm so excited about going to Ireland, presenting my talks, and getting to travel a little bit.
I know, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's great. I mean, like I said, our web carnival is a nice little feeder into future talks, it seems like. So awesome. You have your slides ready, I assume?
Yeah.
Do you have any questions going forward, or?
No, I mean, I would be able to share my screen. I mean, I have a presentation, and then I have not. I mean, it's only the presentation what I need to share, and the presentation is quite interactive, so it's going to take us into other areas. But I think that everything is going to be okay. I tried it. I practiced a lot. And
perfect.
Well.
So I've made you co-host, so you should have all the same stuff that I do. So we'll just take a little bit of a break, and you can relax for a few minutes. And then when I come back on screen, I'll start talking to everybody about getting prepared for the next session. Okay?
Okay, great.
See you soon.
See you soon.